as he pointed out, we're not making it up as we go, because we've been planning this for a long time, but we've come up with things to fill in David's slot, and we're gonna be interactive today, because that's all what social media is about. So I was like you. I was a scientist too, and I know you probably but you'll benefit and you'll have fun. So first, I want to ask, how many of you are on LinkedIn? Okay, about 70% or 80%. How many of you blog? Okay, nobody. And hopefully we'll be talking about a new website for anatomists that hopefully will get you interested in blogging. It's called Anatomy Connected, and we'll be talking about that later. So how many of you are on Twitter? Okay, so how many of you are going to tweet about this? Okay, so what are your handles so people can follow on Twitter if they're... You don't have to if you... But anyway, the hashtag for the anatomy conference is Anatomy14, and so it's just a hash mark at Anatomy14. And for the bigger meeting, it's XBio, which is at the end of this URL. And so one of the things I'd like to say, and is anyone having a hard time hearing me? Because I can use the microphone. Just don't be shy. Okay, and someone in the back said no. So we have Wi-Fi access. It's unprotected, so be careful. Don't do any of your banking during our talks. But you can download my presentation at comprendia.com/xbio. We're also talking about maybe getting some of the other presentations online as well. So without further ado, all right, so who am I? So this is me at the lab bench about 20 years ago. I was trained as a biochemist. I have a PhD in biochemistry. And I took a certain path because I followed things that I loved. And I do love bench work. I love biochemistry. But I also was really interested in online tools and making pretty visualizations of things, which as anatomists, hopefully you also have an appreciation for that. And I also love to organize events. So I took a path. It wasn't always clear. So now I run a marketing consulting company called Comprendia. And so, as you can imagine, I focus on social media. So part of that is getting out and talking to scientists. So part of the new economy, I can't just say, I'm doing marketing, buy my product. I have to sell content to you. I have to help you, and I enjoy doing that. I'm very happy with that. I also started something called the San Diego Biotechnology Network because I saw a need in San Diego for scientists to be able to connect both online and in person, and we have events every other month. So through this, I've been doing this for 6 years. I have a network of about 20,000. I do marketing, I do events, writing, obviously speaking. So I don't know David Mills, but he found me through Google search. So I must be doing something right. So I use it for my business and to make a living, but most importantly, I found my niche and I'm happy. So in preparing this talk, so it's one of those things where you write the abstract 3 months ago, you come back to, what was I going to talk about? So I had written about the fact that scientists have had social networks for many, many decades. You could say 150 years, 200 years, ever since that they could communicate through letters, telephone, email, etc. So again, I get on the Google about 10 days ago, and I start looking. And what was really fascinating is I found that there was a project out of Cambridge, UK, called the Darwin Correspondence Project. So Darwin actually took his trip on the HMS Beagle. I think it was 1831. He did not publish The Origin of Species until 20 years later, because as you can imagine, the ideas were pretty revolutionary. So he had to create a social network with letters. And if you want to waste half a day, go to the site. But I actually spent some time looking at these data, and I created Charles Darwin's social network. And I'm not the first one to think about this. You could do it from the letters, you could do it from the publications to see who he published with. So what I've done here is I've made a bubble chart, and each bubble represents the correspondent that he either wrote letters to or received them from, and the size of the bubble represents how many. And I'll just jump off very quickly and show you some of the cool things. If you go to comprendia.com/xbio, you can play around with it in your spare time. So, for your benefit, I'm showing the anatomist in a very distinct color, orange. So you can see he corresponded with about 50 different anatomists. And if you click on this link and go here, and this will open all of the letters that he wrote to this author. So, so as you can see, even though I'm in marketing, I still go back to my early days. I did a lot of manipulation of computer. I did programming. So I have that there, but I use it for marketing, and it's really fascinating in this day of age of all the data that we have available. And I think, I don't want to say Darwin would be proud, but I think, he's the one that did all this, and that the Darwin Correspondence Project is happening is something I think he would really be happy about. So, another interesting thing about this network that he created is that you can see from the colors over here, the colors in this, he actually corresponded with so many different categories of people that I ran out of colors. So you can see in here astronomer, barrister, chemist, and what I thought was really interesting is that he corresponded with a lot of clergymen. Because as you can imagine, this is pretty revolutionary, and he had to see what the clergymen thought of it, get support, and actually, he wasn't the first one to come up with this idea, but I think that because he had such a big social network and he had been working on the ideas, he was actually also collecting samples from people all over the world through the postal service. And this is before the telephone was even invented. So I can't say enough about how you can be inspired by this. And so fast forward to the 2010s. So there is an organization in North Carolina called Science Online, and they started out with science blogging, and they also developed a network on Twitter, and mostly it's through a hashtag, SCIOX. And I have learned so much from these people, and they're thought leaders. They're on Twitter because they want to talk to other thought leaders. So it's really fascinating. So what I did a few years ago is I looked at Twitterers talking to other Twitterers, and I put this on a map, and you can see a lot of the Twitterers are in the United States by these small black names, but they're talking to people all over the world. And this line down here is people that we don't know exactly where they are. So there are 450 people that go to this conference every year, but there are 4,000 people tweeting about it, so 10 times that many. There are 40,000 conversations that go on, so 100 times. So it's really quite remarkable. Barriers are being broken down all the time. So hopefully the possibility of being able to talk with people all over the world excites you. So one of the things that's important, and Jenna will talk about this as well, is having a personal brand. And so I'll go through a few examples if it's not tangible to you from my description, so don't worry about it. We'll just start thinking about it. So you need to research what your interests and goals are. And for me, I started out in biochemistry, but I always had this side interest. And I also did some things personally. I had my own personal Twitter account, etc. Of course, I'm on Facebook, LinkedIn. But I was able to think about what I really wanted to do through these social media networks. And then also you want to think about how does your current work translate to the job market, because at the end of the day, you've got to pay your bills. And also, I think most importantly, you're going to have your career and your personal brand for your whole life. So you need to think about what gets you up in the morning. And, talking to you guys Saturday at 8 a.m., obviously this is what gets me up in the morning. So then you also need to think about your tactics. How are you going to go about building your personal brand? So you need to follow news and publications in your area. So I don't know about you, but I don't actually watch traditional TV anymore. I get everything through my iPad. And so what this means is I had to make the conscious decision a couple of months ago that I'm going to follow news organizations on Facebook because I'm just not getting the news in other ways. So you can do the same thing with anatomy and other types of news. You can follow them on Facebook and get that news that way because you're already there, checking up on social updates. So another thing that you can do is use really simple syndication. So if you're on a blog or a website, you can look for an orange symbol and click on that and add that to your RSS reader. And it's a little bit techy, but I know that you can figure it out. And then, of course, Twitter. Once you start following people, let's say you start tweeting at this conference and you follow everyone that uses the Anatomy14 hashtag, then you'll be able to see, they'll be posting news according to their personal brand. So all the different flavors of anatomy, there might be someone who has that personal brand and they're going to be sharing that. Google Alerts are also good. You want to share that information based on your personal brand and build your reputation. And then again, we can't talk about it enough, and Jenna will talk about it later. You need to be networking. So let's talk about concrete examples of these personal brands. And these are two people that I met on Twitter. So David Schiffman, you can tell from his picture and from his Twitter handle that he's all about shark conservation. And as you can imagine, I guess probably last week, someone in Florida pulled a hammerhead shark onto the beach and killed it. I think he killed it. And it made the news. And the journalists weren't really saying it's illegal to do this because it's a shark. So he is very passionate about this, and he often gets asked to be the shark expert because of all of his activism, but also because he's easily found on Google. So journalists, they're like everyone else. I need to find a shark expert, Google. And because he is so prolific online, I'm sure he's very experienced, but there are other people who aren't getting noticed because they're just not online. And we'll talk about this a little bit more later. So Danielle Lee, in the picture up here, I'm Facebook friends with her, and she posted this, and I said that she's actually upstaging Alan Alda on this, so I'm very happy for her. So Danielle is a biologist. She works with an African rat, which I've also seen on Facebook. She posts pictures of them. And that's her work that she does during the day, is about animal behavior. But she's also become a very important influencer for science communication and people and women of color. And so she's been to the White House. She's received multiple awards. And she's just got a very strong personal brand. And when people are looking for someone to speak in that area, they find her very easily. So I would urge you to follow them and also use them as an example. This is also what's great about social media. You can just find someone and see what's working for them and do that, and that's okay. You can find these people who are tweeting this meeting and connect with them on LinkedIn and find out what they're doing professionally. All right, so I want to talk a little bit about etiquette. So one of the things that you need to learn, and I have here not the salutation, but the opposite of that at the end of a letter from Charles Darwin. One thing is, if you read his letters, it's Victorian England. He is very formal, but he's also a very nice person. And if you look through, you'll find examples of how he encouraged younger scientists who were starting to make the same types of observations that he made. So it's very important to have a good etiquette and think about what you're doing constantly. So it's not all about you. If you're going to just say, I need a job, what do you have for me? And having my network, that happens to me a lot. People don't reach out to me until they need something. And so you need to think about that in all of your interactions. And then you need to consider your audience. Who are you talking to? Is your goal going to be to talk to the public, to talk to other scientists, and how does this relate to your goal? So there are different things that happen with the public. For example, animal Experimentation is, of course, a very delicate area. So these are things, if you're going to be talking to the public, or if the public's going to find that in any way, you need to consider that. You also need to think about your institution's policies before you go out and embark on something of this. You see often in Twitter biographies, the opinions expressed here are mine only, and that's to protect your institution. And then also test the waters and try out a different application before you start really posting a lot, because there might be etiquette rules that you're not aware of. And then one of the things I want to say also is that you need to use in real life values when you're communicating with people. So one of the biggest detriments I see in social media, or the biggest thing that I think people could do wrong, is to not think that there's a person on the other end, thinking that because you're online, you can just say anything to this person and that they don't have a real life and they're not going to take it personally. You probably heard a lot about trolls on the internet, people who post comments. You just need to look at one YouTube video and see that there's a lot of negativity out there. And so don't rush to judgment or make rash statements. Think very carefully before you post things. The internet is forever. And then also there's an option when you're starting a blog or starting a Twitter account. You can be pseudonymous. That's a hard word to say, but you can create an external personality for yourself. You could be, I know someone who's Diva Biotech, and everyone knows who she is, but she could have just been completely anonymous. But when you do this, it actually doesn't really contribute to your career. So you need to think about that. Do you want to do that? Why are you starting a blog or starting a Twitter account? If it's for your career, then you really need to choose a topic that is amenable to that and not be anonymous. All right, so just to show you that scientists really are using social media, I have access to some market research from a company called Bioinformatics LLC, and if you get the PDF that I posted, you can link to this. So 35% use social media constantly or frequently. So this is 1/3, and they're using it constantly or frequently. So this is a pretty significant number. Life scientists spend an average of 2 hours per day in social media for personal and professional use, because sometimes it's difficult to put them in separate categories. So LinkedIn and Facebook are the top social media applications for life scientists. And then also, if you look at what life scientists use social media to do, it's all about their career, their professional activities, networking, etc. So, there's a lot of people out there doing it, but it needs to be done carefully, as we talked about. All right, so just to talk about the different applications, and again, I'm not going to read this whole slide to you. It's more put together as a guide that if you download the PDF and look at it later, you can use it for reference. And so Jenna is going to talk about LinkedIn, but of course that's a very, very important tool. It's like a professional Facebook, and I think you said about 80% of you are on there. Twitter we'll be talking about, and Twitter has a lot of benefits because once you put items on there, it's easy for people to find you, and it affects your online brand presence. Blogging is something that I think none of you have done yet, or maybe one or two that didn't raise your hands. And this is a way to really talk about a subject in depth, and it also affects ways that people can find you and you can meet other people. And then Google Plus is kind of an oddball because I'm a big fan of Google Plus, but to be honest with you, I only get on there when I'm having problems with Facebook, because it's kind of all over the place. I explain Google Plus as social networking for Google, how Google wants you to do it, how the Google employees would want to do social networking. They've set it up that way because you need to put people in circles, and you need to share with different circles. You need to decide the circles. However, Google is in charge of the internet, and so you just have to buckle down and have a presence there, whether it be Google Scholar or Google Plus. And actually, if you have a Gmail account, you're already on Google Plus. So it's important to think about it, and I'll have one slide on that. All right, just to talk about the Anatomy 14 tweets. that went back and forth, and there's a few of you who are on here. So I was using the hashtag to talk to different people, and Karen, I had talked to before, but I had never really met her. I don't know why I use air quotes, but kind of the difference between knowing someone and being face-to-face. Lisa and I talked a bit, and she had some questions, which are listed here. And then I didn't get a chance to meet Trina and Ashley. I don't know if they're in the audience, but it's a way to get a lot more out of a conference. You know people already going in. There are often tweet-ups at conferences, and that's an instant way to meet people, just to go to the tweet-up. And then finally, the Anatomy Meeting account told me about the online community at Experimental Bio. And then when David got sick, and I found out, I think yesterday afternoon, the first thing I said was, let's get someone in here to talk about that. So it really gets you a leg up. All right, so just to talk about the basics of Twitter. So as many of you know, it's 140 characters. A lot of people talk about that people are just talking about their breakfast, but you really can put a lot into 140 characters. There's a lot of ways that you can shorten links. You can provide links to people and shorten them so that you have a lot more room for text. And then really you're linking them to something. So this is why it's also important to have a blog or a Facebook page or something to link people to so that they can get more information. But you don't have to do that. You can just stay on Twitter. You use the ampersand and then the user to send a public message to someone. And it's important to know that when people are looking at your timeline, they will only see these replies to that user if they're following that user also. So it's a way that Twitter keeps you from getting a lot of garbage because people are replying. And it's kind of like a chat. So Twitter doesn't want you to see chats between people you don't know. People, the one person, not the other. So if you're going to do that, put a period before the ampersand if you want everyone to see it, if it's something of general use. So the direct message has become infamous because some people have accidentally tweeted things instead of sending them directly to a user. And you need to be very careful when you're doing this because if you do it wrong, you could, if you're gossiping about someone, again, getting back to that brand, better to either call them or, I guess call them is the only way, or maybe just not gossip at all, which I know it's hard to do, but so this is a direct message. We'll send it to the user like a text, and then a hashtag, which we talked about, not only for meetings but different topics. And then what's really cool about Twitter is you follow based on content, so you can just do a search anytime you want and find who's talking about what. And the Twitter app makes it pretty easy to do that. And you want to provide information based on your brand, and you should be talking to people. You shouldn't just be broadcasting. And as we talked about, we want this session to be more interactive later, and this is along that theme. So just a couple more tactics. You want to fill out your profile completely and carefully. So if your brand is that you want to be the expert on virtual anatomy, then you want to have that in your profile so that when the reporter or whoever, someone who's looking for an employee, they're going to find you a lot more easier. And it's all about keywords on the internet to get your brand out. So you need to get followers. I see some people just tweeting for years with 100 followers, and it's kind of like you're not going to make those connections. You need to have more followers. So to be followed, you must follow other people. And that's completely okay to follow people you don't know. It's just part of Twitter. And then you can search and look for terms, and here are those keywords again. Also, I would suggest if you're going to start Twitter, follow everyone on the Anatomy 14 hashtag. And the apps that I see people use the web. There's a Twitter app for many operating systems like Apple. And then Hootsuite is what I use, and sometimes I use TweetDeck as well. And then if you get the PDF, this is a hot link to a collection of different Twitter tips that we've come up with through the years. All right, so ways to blog. WordPress is one of the applications that is my favorite, and you can either host your blog at wordpress.com, which is pretty easy, or you can get a server and host your own for about $7 per month. And as I mentioned, it's flexible and it's our favorite. You can use Blogger, and when you do that, all of your blog posts are going to have this header on there that says that you're on Blogger, but it's easy to get started. Tumblr is something that at my age, I don't get it, and I keep trying to go back to Tumblr and follow things and reblog, but it's big with the millennials, and I see companies doing it as well, so it's easy to set up. And then you can join an existing blog network, and again, Donovan will be talking about that later, the Anatomy Connected. And then I'll just go through this briefly. This is a diagram that someone put on Google about all the life science blog networks. And so there's quite a community. It's not always obvious to you from the outside, but there are people posting comments on the blogs. There are people that then go and interact on Twitter, etc. And then again, these sources here, which are hot links, will help you to find the different blogs. And then finally, Google+. So as I've mentioned, Google has us all over a barrel because they own the internet, and even though they're often at odds with Facebook, we just can't get away from them. And of course, they have a lot of really great products. So one thing that's going to be very important over the coming years is something called Google AuthorRank. So I don't know about you, but I've got a lot of friends from grade school, et cetera, on Facebook, and some of them post things that are from websites that are called like the End of Times and things like this. And so right now it's kind of the Wild West, the worldwide Wild West on the internet, because anyone can post anything, and people believe it. And so Google AuthorRank, from my point of view, is meant to give more credibility to authors like Matthew Herper from Forbes, who really does know what he's talking about. So his items will come up higher in a search if you're looking for the real information, for example, on vaccinations, etc. So it's important to get connected into this so that you can have this credibility. And your Google Plus network will affect search results. I don't know if you've noticed this, but when you do searches now, there are often pictures that come up in the search results of the authors. And so these are people who know what they're doing because they're getting into Google+, they're making all the right links. And then when you see, oh, I see this author that I know, or I'm going to pick this because it has a picture, it's going to affect your personal brand. So in short, you should get going on Google+. If you're in Gmail, you've already got an account. And then you just add colleagues. It's similar to Facebook. And you would share information just like you would on Twitter, etc. And there are also groups and hashtags. Additionally, there's something called Google Scholar, which you can set up a profile. I have a profile even though I haven't published in 10 years. And so it's just good to have your toe in this. And also, you can look at what's working well for others. Are other people getting good search results, etc., because they're using Google+. All right, so Facebook, basically, my bottom line is to be good. You just can't have it both ways. You only have one online identity. You need to make your Facebook presence more professional. So some of the things you can do, you can manage your privacy to make sure that only people who know you see your updates, etc. And you need to decide, do you want people to be able to find you on Facebook because of your personal brand? And I had to actually change to my work name. I actually go by a nickname that all my friends from high school know me. And one day I just decided I can't have it both ways. I have to go to my work name. Keep politics at a minimum. This kind of goes without saying, although I have a hard time with that. No passed out photos, and you can't always control what other people are going to do, but maybe you need to stop partying less, or stop partying, and it's just the reality. So you can also follow anatomy organizations and News and Engage. One of the things that Facebook is doing, because they're trying to make money, is they're making organizations pay for every update. So this is something as a user you need to go, when you like a page, you also have to select get notifications so that you get them. And things change every day with Facebook, so this might not work for the long term, but just try to do that, or just make it a habit to go to these organizations and look them up. And then I mentioned David Schiffman, who's all about sharks. So he's constantly posting pictures about parties that he has about sharks with shark gummies and different things. So he really lives his brand, but he lives in Florida, and so people get away with that. But you don't have to do that. You can just stay professional, but not tell everyone about all of your interests, all your professional interests. So it's your decision. So just on getting started, determine what your personal brand is. And it doesn't have to be what you're going to be doing in 20 years, because you might choose one personal brand and decide that you want to go in a different direction from the people that you've met. You just don't really fit in or something like that. But it's just important to get in there. Start small with a LinkedIn and a Google Plus profile, for example. You can share your brand on Facebook, and of course tweet at Anatomy14, and look at the Anatomy Connected website. Be creative. As I point out, Danielle Lee, even though she works in conservation biology, she has found her niche in science communication and talking about STEM education. And start now. You can't just build a brand overnight, and you don't want to be the person that when you need a job, you're a stranger to other people. So my last slide is just, this is just the start. I'm available, tweet me, link to me on LinkedIn. I'm available for questions. I'm not always able to do a lot for everyone, but, hopefully I could point you to someone who could. And with that, I'm going to close up and let Jenna go. And we could do questions at the end. 5 minutes of questions? Okay. So are there any questions?
You didn't mention ResearchGate. How do you feel about that?
I didn't mention ResearchGate because Jenna and David were supposed to talk about it, but I think like I said, I haven't published in 10 years, but I'm on ResearchGate, and I definitely think it's like the #1 research-based application, but Jenna will talk more about it. Yes?
How do you deal with the information overload and everybody showing you pictures of their friends? Or gummy shark parties you're obviously not going to go to in Florida.
Yeah.
I find that when I jump into Facebook, I feel like I'm in a river. I want to experience the river for a day, but I'm never going to see every particle of water going by.
Yeah.
But I have this urge to want to read everything. So if I've been away for a month, I come back and I look, and I've got a month's worth of Facebook stuff that I haven't read, and I feel this urge to read it all.
Yeah. It's about information overload, and you just have to learn to love the stream, and treat it like a stream that you're going to dip in. So I follow, on Twitter, I follow about 3,000 people, and I can't, so I made a list of people that I'm following closely. So on Facebook, you can do interest groups, or you can put people in a closer family, but you just kind of have to say, another good point is that the good stuff rises to the top. So you've got all these people sharing stuff, but if a lot of people like that, and Facebook is trying to help you with that, if a lot of people like it or share it, that'll rise to the top. So hopefully the algorithms are getting better, but in Twitter it's just kind of you just have to jump in and then jump back out.
Look at your news feed on Facebook. You can organize that, as you said, multiple ways. So try some things and find one that works for you, because it's not like it used to be. You can organize it, and that way you don't have to, to be honest, I just fly, the junk out, I fly through the stream, and it's top of the stuff of it.
I unfollow people, and they don't know, and it's like,
That's right, yeah.
So anyone else? Okay, thank you, and I'm just going to do